Hello, my name is Dr. Richard Argent-Call, and today is June the 22nd, 2023, and I'm speaking to you from New York. I'm about to introduce a documentary being produced in the United States. It is entitled An Indian Persecution. The documentary exposes massive schemes of racial discrimination against successful Indian physicians. Schemes that have been perpetrated and are being perpetrated by the American insurance industry in collusion and conspiracy with certain agencies and persons of the American government. Within this documentary, which will be the first of many, I interview 3 successful Indian physicians who have all been indicted by the American government for criminal prosecution and incarceration. However, before I get into any further detail about the substance of the first documentary, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I was born in India in 1964 and emigrated to the United Kingdom in 1966. I grew up in England and graduated from medical school in London in 1988. I came to the United States in 1989 and I did my postgraduate residency training in New York from 1989 to 1995. I then returned to the United Kingdom, underwent further training, and then practiced privately in London up until 2001, when I returned to the United States. From 2001 to 2012, I built, arguably, one of the most successful, minimally invasive spine surgery practices in the United States. However, as a consequence of my success, I was attacked by my competitors, governmental agencies in New Jersey, the New Jersey Medical Board, and by the American insurance industry. My medical license was illegally suspended in 2012 and then illegally revoked in 2014. I decided I had to fight to regain my livelihood, my reputation, and my license. But most importantly, I had to fight to expose the corruption that had been going on and is still going on within the American healthcare system, and particularly, as described in this documentary, the corruption that is racially motivated and directed at successful Indian physicians. In 2016, after having taught myself the law, I filed a lawsuit in the United States Federal Court against the individuals and agencies that illegally conspired to have my license revoked. The defendants included an ex-New Jersey governor, insurance companies, and the New Jersey Medical Board. On this journey, which began in 2012, a journey to expose the truth and find justice, I came to know and became connected with other doctors in America, principally Indian physicians, who had experienced similar things whereby they had built, over many decades of hard work and sacrifice, very successful careers, but who were then illegally and viciously attacked by the insurance industry and certain governmental agencies and persons. These physicians had their life earnings and assets seized, their reputations destroyed, their careers and families decimated, and in many immensely tragic cases, these Indian physicians were incarcerated, whilst others committed suicide. So, fast forward to 2021, 2022, when a group of us decided that we had to present a united front in both the courts of law and of public opinion. And so more of us began filing lawsuits and freedom of information petitions. We began speaking publicly across the internet, and that movement evolved into us taking the decision to produce this documentary, the first of many. In this introduction, I want to briefly talk about the issues that are discussed in more detail in the documentary. And I suppose, in its simplest form, the issue comes down to this. The insurance industry in America is a purely for-profit enterprise. Its only concern, and indeed motive, is increasing executive compensation and shareholder value. And it does this in a number of different ways, many of them illegal. One of their tactics involves the perpetration of schemes that attack principally Indian and African American physicians by co-opting investigative, prosecutorial, and adjudicative authorities of both state and federal governments. In collusion with certain governmental agencies and persons, false criminal indictments are filed against doctors, who are then forced and/or coerced into pleading guilty in order to avoid the risk of trial and being jailed for hundreds of years. In this coercive process, all of the doctor's assets are seized by the insurance industry and government, and the proceeds are subsequently split. The doctors are then sent to jail, lose their careers, their livelihoods, and quite often they take their lives. The reason that the public have no idea of these schemes of massive theft is that the insurance corporations, many of whom hold controlling shares in media corporations, have ordered the media corporations to not report the truth of these cases, or to report the cases in a manner in which the doctor is falsely portrayed as the villain, when in fact it's the insurance industry that are the criminals. This documentary will dismantle the massive cover-up and the stories of the three physicians to whom I speak, illustrate and describe in heart-wrenching detail the absolute horrors and evil being perpetrated in America on successful Indian physicians. And so, in concluding my introduction, I would ask that, having viewed this documentary, you continue the conversation with your family, friends, and every other human that you believe is interested in truth and justice. Because by spreading the word of this story over the internet and over a cup of coffee, we will generate enough public support and pressure to bring this ruthless and seemingly unrelenting persecution and its perpetrators to a deservedly ignominious end. Thank you.
So, Doctors Akula, Savani and Anand, here we are today on May the 7th. It's a Sunday in the year 2023, and we're in Dr. Savani's practice and building in Pennsylvania. And none of us probably ever thought, even 6 months ago, a year ago, about the forces that would bring us together, you know, into this this coalition, or this seed of a coalition, to expose a problem that the American public and that the world knows nothing about. And it's this problem, some say a scandal, of programs, schemes of racial discrimination and targeting that have been conducted against successful Indian physicians in America by a conspiracy between the American government or governmental agencies and the insurance industry. And so in putting together this documentary, which will be the first of many, what we're hoping to do is to expose this issue in order that we can change the system of discrimination that's been going on. And each of you, in your own right, were and are very successful men. And you all went to medical school and you underwent postgraduate training and you became very successful in your own right and in your own speciality. And yours, Dr. Akula's infectious diseases, and yours, Dr. Savani, was in dental surgery, and yours, Dr. Anand, was in interventional pain. But the common link that brings all of us together is one, the success, and two, the fact that we are all either Indian or of Indian origin. But within the commonality of our story, there are, of course, differences in the experience, or the experiences that we've all had. And so, you know, I want to start this part of our conversation, which will hopefully be a long conversation, and ask each of you to just, you know, tell us, or tell the world, because this is going to be going out to the world, about your experience and something about your story. So, Dr. Akula, I would like to ask you to begin.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Dr. Bhaskar Savani. Thank you, Neil. And it is a great opportunity to gather here to tell my story. And in fact, you know, my story is very long, but I'm going to start with 2005. As a lot of you guys may know that state of Louisiana and Mississippi has been affected by this natural hurricane, Katrina. And when Katrina hit, we as a hospice agency, we were there. My mother was there, my family, my sisters were there, my brother-in-laws were there, and we stayed on. And said, I think, you know, my mother said, Shiva, this place, you came in $50 in your pocket. This community was there for you. They need you right here. And everybody left. No other hospice was there because they could not make money. This is a capitalism. Where there's no money, there's no service. They were there. We said, no, this is not about the money, it's about the service. And it's about these poor black, indigent people that are left over to fend themselves. We said, we just want to be there for you. And we will deliver the hospice service, and we remained. And in course of this, as you know, the hospice is guided by the Medicare regulations. And one of the two regulations is the 80-20. For every 20 inpatients, like in a hospital, you got to have 80 outpatients. But where is the community? It's all flooded. There's no community. So essentially that no, we were not able to conform to that 80-20 rule. And there's a second rule, which is annual cap for every patient. There's a certain amount of money that's been assigned that you have to multiply the total number of patients you served. So essentially we were not able to comply with these Medicare rules, and so we notified. So the CMS, which is the Medicare representative, came to us. You are doing an amazing job. Continue it. We're going to be able to take care of you. We're going to flex all the Medicare rules. Yes, Congress passed a resolution flexing the Medicare rules. And we thought everything is cool. 1 year happened, 2 years happened, we started getting the notice of overpayment. So wait a minute. You guys promised. Like George Bush, the president, came to the Jackson Square in New Orleans and said, we are going to turn this around. We're going to make it a great city back. That's the biggest lie that there is. And a very similar lie was reflected on us, where we were supposed to be helping these people unfazed by the Medicare regulations. They lied to us, and altogether in the span of 4 years, between 2003 to 2004, 5, and 6, they generated $2.4 million overpayment as a penalty for serving these people. That nobody was there. And so we said no, we went to the lawyers. And the guy who helped us was Les Johnson. He came and said, no, we're going to appeal. We won a lot of appeals, year after year. And
do you mind me asking you how much money were Medicare obligated to pay you ultimately? What was the result?
So essentially, once the appeals were successful, that the government evidently has the right to overturn any appeals. And they did. So finally, Les Johnson, our lawyer, said that, you know what, Doc, I hate to tell you, but you got to file a suit against the Louisiana Supreme Court, against the government. And I said, okay, if that's what we need to do, let's do it.
It wasn't against the court, it was against the government, correct?
Oh yeah, it's against the government.
Yeah, against Medicare.
In the Louisiana Supreme Court.
Yeah.
So essentially that we were just like 2-3 days away from trial. We were approached by the AUSA, Jason Bigelow. He is the assistant U.S. attorney. So I got a call saying that, hey, listen, they want to offer a settlement. Then Les said, I think, you know what, we could go and fight it, but we could lose it all. And they want to offer a settlement. So what is that they're willing to offer? So we finally agreed upon a $740,000 settlement out of $2.4 million. I mean, it was a hard pill to swallow, but nevertheless, we just thought it is not fair, but we'll take, what we get.
And when was that settlement? What year was that settlement?
Exactly, 2013. And then as soon as the settlement happened, we were hit with a barrage of audits, like 15 audits, 30 audits, not 100 audits, but 99 chart audits. So obviously it's like hundreds of charts. They've lambasted because...
Dr. Akula, what's a chart audit? Could you explain what a chart audit is?
Basically that we would get a notice to review a chart to see if it complies with documentation requirement. It's not about the compliance with the Medicare rules. It's just a documentation thing. So what happened is, to sum up, the biggest audit of 99 charts, they declined 100%, as if we did not do any service. Hello, we are 2 decades service. We are Joint Commission accredited hospice. Joint Commission is like the men and boys. Joint Commission accreditation is the seal of excellence in hospice care,
right.
And that's what we did.
So the monies were paid to you by Medicare. and you had this award in around about 2013, 2014. And if you could just, tell us what happened in between 2014 and the year that the federal government entered this situation with you, where there was an indictment filed, I understand.
Well, essentially, I think, the biggest chart audit was 99 chart audits. They 100% denied, as if we did not do any service. We are 2 decades organization and joint commission accredited in the city. Possibly, maybe we are the only one that's joint commission accredited, and they took away all of them. And guess what? The prosecutor at that time put a little pressure on my attorney, Les Johnson, scared him. Oh man, maybe you're a co-conspirator or whatever the hell that he did. And Les told me, Dr. Akula, I think, I know the time is getting very short in terms of the appeal of these 99 charts. I am sorry to say I won't be able to represent you. I said, what? Les, you're the one that got us a settlement of $743,000.
So what you're saying is that in this battle with the government, with Medicare over this money, your success in getting the award caused them, in a way, I suppose you could say, to retaliate by having your attorney, become intimidated, correct?
Absolutely. The attorney was scared, and he did not want to tell me all the details of what is being done against him. So he backed off. So literally, I had no time to file an appeal, so I went ahead and paid back nearly $400,000 for 99 chart audits that were declined as if we didn't do any service.
Right.
That is the beginning of the injustice.
Okay, so this fight, this battle with Medicare and the government moved to the point where you had to reimburse $400,000. And then, but you were able to continue running your business, which is a hospice care business, correct?
Absolutely. I think, my point was, I made up myself. You know what? I am going to continue. I continued with, Katrina, during Katrina. I'm going to continue during all the challenges, and more recently, in the last 2 years with COVID-19 challenges. Where, as you know, COVID-19, the original doctor in China.
Now we've moved from 2014 through up, to the 2020, correct? And in this time period, you'd continued running your business.
We continued despite garbage, gossip, and taking away my lawyers, threatening them with all legal actions, whatever the hell that the lawyers do, play the games against me. And we still continued. And the biggest challenge was during COVID-19. As the infectious disease physicians, I was not involved in the hospice care. They were set of the doctors that were contracted that made the decisions to admit, to take care of these patients, and to discharge.
So, Dr. Akula, I just want to clarify so that people can understand. You are an infectious diseases specialist, and your actual practice of medicine is in the area of infectious diseases, correct?
Yes.
But you, in your medical business over the years, developed a hospice care business, which was an entirely separate entity, a business entity, in which you had no clinical involvement, correct?
No clinical involvement. In fact, as a matter of fact, it went very well with my dream of serving this community. So I actually established the Akula Family Foundation in 2014. And then my own lawyer, who was trying to set up, he said, boy, you're dreaming too big. You came with $50 and you're dreaming like a Ford Foundation or Rockefeller Foundation. I said, Bruce, I want to do it, man. I want to set it up. And that's exactly what I did. So this hospice kind of helped me into doing some community works in the grief counseling, children's bereavement camp, which is called a Camp Swan. It's coming up,
Right. So the Akula Family Foundation is separate to your hospice business, which is Canon Hospice, correct?
Yes.
Which is separate to your infectious diseases practice.
Yes.
Okay.
So essentially, I think, my focus was on my service to the community. So 2021, 2022, my mind was all focused on caring for this community, especially when the greatest challenge on earth of COVID-19, where 1 million Americans died. I was there in the front line. Didn't worry about, if I'm going to die, just like the first Chinese doctor who diagnosed COVID-19, he died because there was no treatment at that time.
So, Dr. Akula, you mentioned this period, 2020-22, but in 2021, there was a significant event that occurred in your life, correct? It was in August 2021. And what was that?
Well, in terms of all these stresses caused me to go through this atrial flutter, and I passed out. And I called 911, and then later on I had to go to Mayo Clinic to get an atrial ablation. It's a major operative procedure that was done to fix my heart. And at that time, my lawyer was suggesting, Dr. Akula, let me tell you something. You're 67-year-old with the atrial flutter. I don't want you to die in jail. Why don't you just go in and...
But Dr. Akula, let's just... So it was the stress of something that happened in October.
Absolutely.
And what was that happened in October 2021?
Well, essentially, all this litigation that's been going on has really got to my, my heart, where I could not really survive. And essentially, my lawyer was suggesting that, no, you know what? Let's cut a deal where we can actually do like maybe a little probation. And I said, what?
Right, but isn't it the case that on August the 5th, 2021, an indictment was filed against you?
Well, exactly. What happened is, once this lawyer asked me to see if he want to file, for when I'm going to go ahead and turn myself in and plea deal, I said, hell no, I'm going to fight it. Immediately I got in touch with the Physicians Against Legal Abuse.
But let's step back a little bit, because I want to make sure that we have a clarification in terms of the timeline, so that people can understand. So, you'd built this very successful practice, really going back to the beginning of your time in Louisiana. You had helped out with Katrina. You'd done a lot for the community. You had provided an immense amount of clinical services, through the COVID pandemic, and in a way, in return, I suppose the response you got was that they decided to indict you, and they filed the federal government filed a criminal indictment against you in August 5th, 2021, making allegations that you had allegedly not provided healthcare services.
Essentially, I think, so this was right after the failed attempt to get a plea deal. Within a few days, they filed this indictment. And it was full of lies. The mother of all those lies was Dr. Akula improperly, told his employees to go bill at a very high, CPT codes and higher codes. And then he was actually admitting the patients that are not appropriate to hospice. Hello, I am not the doctor. I'm not the hospice doctor. I'm the infectious disease doctor. So they want the jury and the country to misunderstand that, no, yeah, he's the doctor, but I am the infectious disease doctor. My part with Canon Hospice was only as an entrepreneur, and I am not the doctor that allegedly improperly admitted these patients. And the biggest thing was the beginning of this indictment. It says, I manage this company as a 24-hour, 24/7 oversight. Hello, if you look into the minimum standards, which are the standards laid by the state of Louisiana for hospice care, there is a role for administrator, there's a role for medical director, there's a role for director of nurses.
Right.
There's nothing about the owner. And the administrator is supposed to have 24/7 oversight.
Right. So in the indictment, a copy of which is, it's a matter of public record. They're making allegations that you're saying are really false, in the sense that there's no substantiation. But subsequent to the indictment, that was when you had the episode, with the cardiac episode, correct? It was after that.
It's around that time, and I think, I had the cardiac episode, and so I went ahead and got the ablation, taken care of. So the gist of it is, this is all a bunch of lies that I'm properly billed, and in fact, as soon as the indictment was announced, that I was there for the detention hearing, and the first detention hearing, the prosecutor said, "Oh."
Now, when was that detention hearing? Just to keep a timeline on this, so we can follow this.
I think it was a few days after the indictment that there was a detention hearing.
So sometime in August 2021.
Yeah, something like that. So the biggest lie there was, Dr. Akula's relative fled the country, and he's a flight risk, so we got to put him in jail. Oh my God, it shook me. And what a lie. My brother-in-law was involved in part of the care in the hospice, but he never left the country. And it was total lie. And it's still to be proved, so show us the information, show us the exit documents, whatever, to show that he left the country. That was a lie. The biggest lie. And they were going to put me in jail using that false narrative.
Right.
And very sadly, my mother died later on. And I'm sure that she must have gone through all this pain.
Now, when did your mother pass away, Dr. Akula?
Just a year and a half ago.
2000 and...
21 November.
November 2021.
So essentially at that time, it was very traumatic to me, that thing, I've lost my mother. And as you know from that part of the world,
And she passed away in India, correct?
In India, yes, in India. So death is like, the mind-body is built of 5 elements of the nature. And it is, with the cremation, it is my sacred duty to lit the funeral pyre, whereby the body-mind disintegrates into these 5 elements, where the spirit journeys along.
Now, I just want to take a minute or two to have you, to explain why in the Indian culture and in the Indian tradition, this is such a sacred right for the eldest child to, to administer the final rites of passage.
I am the oldest child in my family, and I have a cultural and a religious obligation to light the funeral pyre. And as I said before, we believe that mind-body is created by these 5 elements of the nature. And cremation is a sacred duty of the oldest. When I do that, I return, the spirit, liberate the spirit out of this mind-body, chain.
Yeah.
And then the spirit goes on to them. So basically she did not leave with that sacred duty and obligation, because the prosecutor vehemently opposed that he's going to be a flight risk, because she already told the lie. My relative fled the country, and then that was a lie.
Right.
And with that lie, she created a false narrative, basically containing me here in America and denying me the sacred duty, which I am told in India, my family were irate. They filed a suit. Even the most criminal that's on a death row gets a last chance to go visit.
Now, let me just ask you on this point. You say filed a suit. So your family in India filed a lawsuit against whom?
This is a lawsuit. It's a symbolic lawsuit of 1 rupee. 1 rupee, as it translates to, is like maybe a 10 cents. Just to show, to prove the point, how barbaric.
Again, but who was the lawsuit filed against, and where was the lawsuit filed?
It's in Hyderabad city against the government of United States. And the second defendant is the Capital One.
Now, is it the government of the United States or the state of Louisiana?
Yes, so the state of Louisiana is the medium through which they reach the government of United States. So essentially, I think, their point was that I was denied the last right, the sacred duty. In Sanskrit, it's called as antim samskar, and so it's the final duty, final rights.
Right.
So this is not just about me and mother's death. At the same time,
So this is an injury in Indian tradition that is going to be an eternal injury that can never be corrected,
Absolutely.
regardless of what litigation or remediation is made in this life.
it inflicted irreversible damage, not just a material but a spiritual a block in the liberation of the soul. And at the same time, I have 3 boys. The oldest one is in U.S. military. He's stationed in San Antonio. Around the same time, his bank account was frozen.
So let me just step back a moment.
Okay.
So, we're now moving on to an element of your story that involves your son. Okay? Now, where are we in the timeline?
It's around the same time where my mother died, and then they froze the account of my son in San Antonio, who's away from me for almost 3 years. And he called me and said, "Dad, I can't bring the food to the table for my 3 babies. What happened? You're a captain. You're serving the nation with your life. You talked to the bank?" He said, "Yes, Dad. They're saying criminal investigation. In the military, he was afraid. Court-martial, he was scared." I said, "Oh my God, how they inflict pain, not only you, but your whole family. That way you're so demoralized that you come down to bow down to their feet, plead, leave me alone." That's the state of mental state they want me to come to that.
So it sounds like you're describing almost a scheme that they were perpetrating to
Absolutely.
psychologically destroy you.
Yes. And could you imagine Capital One, that is one of the bank that held all my accounts. They closed all my accounts, including the account of the Akula Foundation. It's got nothing to do with what I'm doing. And it has been now almost 1.5 years. They're keeping $31,000 without returning the money back.
Dr. Akula, I want to just pause there because what you've recounted so far is again your story, your experience in going through this. And I want to move to Dr. Savani to talk to him and to bring his story in at this point, and then to bring you back into this. Okay.
Great.
Yeah. So Dr. Savani, we're sitting here and the 4 of us around this table, and what Dr. Akula has just said. I mean, some of it I've heard before and I know, but listening to it today is it's still as shocking to me today as when I first heard some of these details, and I know some of the facts pertaining to your practice, your education, the business that you built, the success that you built in this country, an immense level of success, which is very admirable. And I know some of the details about what happened legally, but I just want you to talk about these things and
Thank you, Richard. Thanks for coming here and connecting us together. We are physicians, came to this country to serve the nation. I immigrated from India almost 32 years ago in 1990. From my childhood dream, I always want to be dentist. I believed in this country, and I still believe in this country, because this country gave me an opportunity to be something in my life. I went to dental school here at Temple University in Philadelphia from 1991 to 1995. And my two brothers, my younger brother. In my family, we always had a dream to serve community as we were following the footsteps of my uncle who came to this country in 70s. And he had good practices, dental practices, and we learned that we can also be successful like him. So he was our mentor. From my childhood, I watched him, serving the farming community of India, where I come from. I come from lower middle class to poor family. My parents were teacher. My grandfather was farmer. So I had two passions in my life. I had a passion for the mango farming and bringing mangoes to this country. And also my passion is to be a dentist and serve the community. Because I come from rural family, and we three brothers, my middle brother is an engineer, Arun, and my youngest brother, Dr. Niranjan Savani, we call him Dr. Nin. He also went to dental school at Temple University. He graduated a year after. We started our life in dental journey in 1996, where we bought our first office in Northeast Philadelphia as a general dentist. And we start serving community there. And then we learn about different insurances. A lot of doctors were not taking a Medicaid, and that is a disadvantage to a lot of community members, and there was a demand for that. So we said, we don't mind to take lower reimbursement to serve the community, and we have the commercial business, and we have the, we at the same time we do part of our service and accepting lower reimbursement from the Medicaid community. And we grew from 1 to 2 offices before 2000. And then insurance started requesting us that we need here. There's a underserved, there's a doctors are not taking our plan. And so we have 500 patients here, we have this many patients here. So we started expanding our footprints into these 8 counties of Philadelphia. And we reinvesting back in the community. And we created an efficiency over the period of time, having support organization like Dental Lab, Dental Supply Company. So we can create efficiencies by reducing the cost of the dentistry, and we can serve more people. So in 8 counties, we serve thousands of people, millions of appointments, and we start hiring doctors, those who believe in giving back to the community. It was very difficult, always difficult, to find those doctors who can work with the Medicaid. We were able to convince them because our facilities we are providing to our doctors is so beautiful, state-of-the-art with the digital technology. So doctors were also attracted by our facilities, by our equipment, so they can have a better experience. And eventually we also did the teaching center for doctor. And we did the surgical center to teach them advanced, surgeries. So
over what time period would you say that the business that you set up was really established? Like, what year did you begin?
2001. Pretty much, and then we started expanding. So we have number of locations. Like this location has 3 offices: oral surgery on a 2nd floor, oral ortho pediatric on one side, and one side is general dentistry. So we grew to number of locations, over 30 locations here in Pennsylvania, and almost 50 plus offices from 2000. Pretty much 1996, our first office, to now, until the COVID hit. And then before the COVID, also our growth has been stopped by the raid in 2018.
But let me just step back a second. You expanded not just in Pennsylvania, but in other states as well.
Correct.
Correct?
Correct. We are in Iowa. Again, that is an underserved community. And we are in New Jersey, a couple of places. We are one in Michigan with the multi-specialty center. So, and then we are in Texas with one small office. We started with one of the doctor partnership, also in South Carolina. So we expanded our footprint of this service model to other community, and we were exploring to go to nationwide eventually.
Right.
So that was our first step to expand into certain state.
And just for the the public's clarification, the range of services that your business provided in the dental sector went from preventative care all the way up to complex oromaxillofacial surgery, right?
Correct. Yeah. So we started as a general dentist, and we wanted to really bring everything under one roof, so patient does not have to go to 10 different places, and they can stay here in one place and get everything done, from children's dentistry, pediatric, to all the way to geriatric dentistry, and in between whatever they need, from oral surgery, orthodontics, sedations, pain management. We did everything for the community, so they get service in timely manner. Very important. Any disease we need to control in timely manner, rather than patient going in 10 different places and they don't have a coverage and they have to drive miles and miles. So our goal was to expand into the multi-specialty, we call it, and that started early 2000 to really incorporate other specialty.
And now, not only were you developing and growing the business, but you were moved into the educational side
Correct.
of dental care, both in terms of educating. Well, just tell us about this. Tell about the education.
So it's called vertical integration, where we take the young doctor, they are not competent with the skill, and we want them to be, gain that competency by proper training. So we have 3 different centers here in America. One major center here in Fort Washington, where we're sitting here. We have a surgical room, surgical theater, lecture rooms, state-of-the-art cone beam CBCTs for better diagnosis and better training. And then we have one in South Carolina and Greenville. We have one in Michigan. So we really wanted to uplift the clinical skill
to raise
of
the
doctor,
standards.
raise the standard.
Yeah.
We always believe in that we should be above standard of care,
Yeah.
And for that, we needed to create all the modules and the efficiencies, and we serve through our family corporations.
Yeah.
And below market rate, so we can save the money.
Yeah.
And that saving can help us in expansion and putting more offices and creating more employment, at the same time serving the larger number of people.
Now, also, I understand that your business or foundation collaborated with Temple University. Is that correct?
So basically, the Temple University also gives some lecture here in our facility because they love the facility. We worked with Temple student. We did some outreach program with also, and we did. I'm a Temple alumni, so my brother. We always want to give back to the Temple University, and where we graduated from. So we've been actively involved with going to the Temple University, participating in their expansion program, renovating their old building, and providing modern Temple dean, who really wanted to provide a modern dental, lecture rooms and everything. So we contributed ourselves back to the, university.
Right. So this was a very substantial development project. But I don't know where you found all the time to do this. But in all of this, you also developed charitable foundations in India, and you, I understand, had mango farms.
Yeah. So my parents were teachers, as I told you. In India, they always wanted to go back to the community and serve the community. So my parents went back to India, and they come from rural area, very underserved area. And they always wanted to say that, there's a shortage of good facilities for dental, the school for the primary education. Why don't you do something here? And there's a dental medical, poor, care here. There's not enough doctors serving the rural area. So what we did is, my parents went back to India. They bought a mango farm. And from mango farm, whatever they earned, they set up a foundation. And we 3 brothers served in the foundation. We adopted about 6,000 children, around 22 villages. My parents have built about 5 schools, donated into, and built those schools. And we basically go every other month, one brother is always there, and we take care of those children for their preventative care. Even the adults, there's oral cancer problems there. So we do a lot of screening for the oral cancer for the adults. And we do children's preventative care in 22 villages, about 6,000 plus children. And we do through the local dentists. We take about 80, 90, 100 dentists, and we set up a dental camps, and we take care of those children.
So it sounds to me, because you were born in India and then you came here when you were a young man, correct?
Yes.
And it sounds to me that over the years what you have done is you have interwoven your success from in the professional and business arena into a philanthropic area as well, where you've used your resources to help not just people here in America who have no insurance and can't get access to dental care, but also many communities in India.
Yeah, that is true, because the passion from my childhood, as I told you, I had two passions, right? The mango and the dentistry. Mango is the medium to connect the community. There was a ban on Indian mango. Anybody can Google my name, Bhaskar Savani, and mango, and you will get a lot of articles how I worked in a lobbying for the mango lifting of the ban. My whole purpose was in India to lift up the mango ban.
Somebody, can I ask you about the mango ban? Could you just explain what exactly this is? Because this is a part of your story, a very significant part, I think.
Yeah, in the rural area where I grew up under mango tree in a farming community. My grandfather was a farmer, and my parents were teacher in rural area. So I grew up in that environment, and Indian mango is one of the most delicious fruit. They call it king of the fruit. And it was banned here because South American lobby. South American, and they label under phytosanitary, conditions. But then I found a way to mitigate that issue through the gamma radiation. And I was able to successfully connect all the dots.
Right.
So the ban can be lifted. And when I went to the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., to see why there was a ban, and I realized there was some lobbying people basically, start writing the similar letter to their congressmen or senators, and there was a ban. I believe that small Indian farmer, connecting them to the mainstream American market was very important. Second thing, there's about 3 to 4 million Indian diaspora. For mango is a memory for us, is the aroma of the motherland. And we wanted to have that mango because mango is a symbol of the prosperity, the relationship, the gift giving. All these things were lacking in our homes and our culture here. So mango is beyond the fruit. So I wanted to do that. At the same time, mango being a native tree of India can help me to connect the corridors of the wildlife area. So
Right, so this was part of the project in India with the mango farms, part of your ecosystem project, right?
Correct.
Yeah, to combine a business with essentially a philanthropic effort, right?
Yeah,
helping the environment.
Yeah, bringing that produce to America, connecting small farmers of India directly with the mainstream American market, create some revenue for those farmers, will help them to grow more mango trees. That creates a green belt for us in India. Mm-hmm. And those green belt helps the flora and fauna to migrate from one localized sanctuary to another sanctuary to the national park. And that inspiration came when I think Bill Clinton enacted the law in America to connect all the national parks.
The national parks
And corridors. And I said, the same can be done for India using the rivers and the belt. And so I started this project actively more. Before I was also used to work for WWF, World Wildlife Fund.
Right.
And I was education officer back home in India. And we did a lot of nature conservation camps, environmental camps. So I wanted to weave everything together, healthcare, serving the community, connecting community, work through the community, and make it effective projects, such as creating corridors, bringing a little bit more financial means for the people so they can have a better life standard, living standard.
So Dr. Savani, in this time period from 2000, to 2022, 23, you built this global business, that went from America, across the oceans into Asia, correct?
Correct.
And, and then, as with Dr. Akula and Dr. Anand, there was an indictment that was filed against you by the American government. And, my understanding of it is it pertains generally to the same types of claims. But if you could just, tell us, what, the events leading up to that and what you understand.
Yeah, we have a good team of lawyers right now. Hopefully they are working on this here. But as much as the public information is out there, we've been wrongfully indicted here. We believe that over 28 years of hard work of three brothers, we worked day and night to build what we built here. We did not put money under the carpet. We did not have a substantial savings in our, hundreds of thousands of dollars we never had in our bank. If we had it, we put it back in the business. And we created a wonderful business in a way that we can serve more community and ultra-modern offices and giving them the better diagnostic equipment and reinvesting back into dental business. And we've been targeted unfairly, saying that, okay, you have taken this much money over the period of time from the insurance company. And without looking at our expenses, they just accusing us that we defrauded the whatever the system is. We've been 28 years, we've been audited a number of times by the insurance company. Like chart audit, Dr. Akula said, we have routine chart audit. Everything pretty comes very clean. And we never been accused of
anything. Just to clarify again, this phrase chart audit, this is a very technical term that exists in the healthcare sector. The general public, again, it's a process whereby, is it the government or the insurance companies that come in and evaluate a medical chart to see if what's been billed coincides with what's in the chart. Correct. Is that correct?
That is done by insurance companies, right, who takes the money from the government, federal government or state government. These are the MCOs, managed care organizations. Their goal is they don't measure our quality of care, they measure money. Everything is centered about their payment. I just give you a great example. One of the chart audit we had about 100 chart audits, and we did good advanced procedure for the people to save the teeth. Like, for example, root canal. We did the root canal, and root canal was done beautifully, very nicely. Everything is fine. But end of the day, we got a comment during our chart audit session. We had a session with my outside consultant, who was a compliance officer. In front of everybody, the director of the insurance company, MCO, point blank, tells me that you should not save the teeth with the Medicaid patient because Medicaid patients are highly unreliable. You should pull that tooth out. Now you're going to, we have to pay you for the root canal. I say, if it is covered services, then you pay. And we did the services. But he said, no, this Medicaid patients are unreliable. So I told him, if you have an abscess on your finger, you're basically telling me to chop it off. So don't treat that abscess. So how can...
Dr. Savani, could I just... MCO stands for...
Managed Care Organization.
Managed Care Organization. And this entity, this insurance entity, were the ones that were telling you that they didn't want to pay for you to restore the teeth of people that had Medicaid.
Correct. Very specifically. I said, we are treating human. People treat their animal much better than the human, much better than the human because, we care about this thing. And you're telling me this, because this person has a Medicaid, I should not do the root canal, because expecting that the patient may not show up, because that root canal, we have to do crown after that. You're telling me don't do root canal because, it's a costly for the, for the plant. So they are basically looking those chart audits, and they never gave us the algorithm, what they look for. But end of the day, what we see is they're looking for their money. So, okay, you did this services. Okay, we're not disagreeing with services, but you should not do it because they are Medicaid patients, they may not come back. That was a very shocking to hear.
So part of what you're saying to me sounds as if the insurance company, MCO, wants you to provide this care, and then they don't want to pay for it on the basis that, in their opinion, Medicaid patients are unreliable.
Unreliable for coming up and for follow-up services.
And so what you're saying is the insurance company puts profit before patients.
Absolutely. And how can they dictate our professional, integrity? They question. We went to dental school. We understand the infection. We understand how to take care of the infection. And they are the one going to dictate through their numbering system whatever they punching in. And if we do good services, we are flagged. We are outlier because you do a lot of good services. Basically, the utilization, they look at it. And they still pay 25 to 30 cents a dollar. And they still wanted to take that money out after paying services. And we paid to the doctors, we paid all the bills, all the overheads. And this is very, very unusual things we start noticing lately in last 10
Dr. Savani,
years.
can I just ask you quickly, I'm going to move on to Dr. Anand shortly. In your lengthy career as a dentist, have you ever heard of an insurance company going bankrupt?
No, never.
Right.
I never see. Another thing which now our good hard work has been criminalized. That we are like not a caregivers, we are criminals. It hurts to my heart, but I haven't seen any single insurance company gets criminalized. They use all the tactics to alter the care for the patient.
And so it would seem to you that their only concern ultimately is shareholder profit.
It is absolutely. And there is no oversight on those things, in my mind. They have all the freedom. They are colluding with the government. Government is taking advantage of those numbers. And we don't know how they do their algorithms, their mathematical, equations, and how they use this as a weaponize against us. It's beyond our thinking.
Dr. Savani, on that point of algorithms, I want to move on to Dr. Anand, who, I'm sure all of us will agree, is, the de facto expert in this arena now in algorithms. So, Dr. Anand, I'd like to, to have you, first of all, talk to what you've heard and talk about yourself and, just kind of like continue this conversation.
Dr. Call, I am aghast. I'm sickened by what I'm hearing today. This disgusts me, this kind of behavior that the American government is doing to immigrants who've come to this country to build this country into a great country, to add technology, know-how, study of medicine, improving medicine. They're trying to destroy the medical foundation in this country. It disgusts me, it sickens me. I was born here in the United States. I was born here in Media, Pennsylvania, and I did most of my training in upstate New York, in the Albany area. I went to high school there, college there, medical school there. I came back to Philadelphia. I went to New York City, lived through the World Trade Center. Right after the World Trade Centers collapsed, those buildings collapsed, I joined the military because I felt that it was a huge part of history, that it changed the course of America. I served in the United States Naval Medical Corps, which has a profound and great history of innovating new technology and new techniques from the battlefield.
When did you join the military? What year?
It was 2001. It took some time to, for me to become an officer, but it was 2003, and then they backdated to 2001.
Had you gone to medical school before
Yes.
Yes.
So I'd already done medical school, and it wasn't, right after medical school, I was doing my internship at NYU Downtown Hospital. Anyone who's lived in New York City knows that's 2 blocks away from the World Trade Center. I was there. I heard the first, I was in a lecture, and I heard the first plane fly in, because it was a loud bang. I mean, it was noticeable. It was a few blocks away. Someone looked out the window and said, "Oh my God, complete pandemonium." They shut down the hospital. At that day, I saw. No, I didn't see the second plane fly in. It was too fast. But I saw the explosion right from a window while I was running through the hospital, and hundreds of people were coming in. And when the buildings actually collapsed, there was so much dust in that area that I actually thought the whole city was being bombed. I thought we were at war.
Right. So it's fair to say that the events of 2001 stirred that patriotic element in you, so much so that you decided to join the American military.
Yes, and I felt that America was being attacked for our views, for the rights that we had under the Constitution, that we were an inclusive society, that we took all the best aspects of the world, brought them here. We had so many different cultures of the world. I mean, if you go and live in New York City, like I did at that time, there are people from Asia, Australia, Europe, Africa, South America.
So New York was a microcosm of the world.
It's a microcosm of the world. The United Nations is there. The United Nations building there. So, this is something I'm exposed to. And now hearing these stories, they're so heartbreaking, so horrible, from senior, seasoned physicians. It just disgusts me. This is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. It sickens me to my stomach.
And we're here here today, 4 of us, but we actually represent a much larger number of doctors across America. And Dr. Anand, you again are the experts. You've collected the most accurate data over the years as to all of the doctors. I mean, you want to talk about your work with data analytics and the algorithms
Sure.
that Dr.
Absolutely. So, I live here in Philadelphia, and, in the Philadelphia area, one insurance company dominates everything in this area. It's Independence Blue Cross. It's a franchise of the Blue Cross Blue Shield companies. Now, I had gone to a few conferences in the area, and I went to a meeting of chiropractors.
What year was this?
And this was in 2015. And during that meeting of chiropractors, 2 chiropractors, one was Jason Lazaroff, and the other was Dr. Howard Bloom. They told me that Blue Cross Blue Shield went after them, destroyed their business. Dr. Jason Lazaroff told me that he was living on a friend's couch. His wife divorced him, destroyed his whole entire family. Dr. Howard Bloom said that he was indicted. He won his freedom. He prevailed in the court, and then he sued Blue Cross Blue Shield. So I knew a lot of these things were happening, and I was getting chart audited by Blue Cross Blue Shield, just like these gentlemen, and I started complaining to the Pennsylvania Insurance Department, because they did not want me to make one single penny. They wanted to treat me like a slave.
And you had built up a practice, I think, in the field of interventional pain.
Right,
correct?
interventional pain, regional anesthesia, because I learned a lot of ultrasound and regional anesthesia techniques from my mentor, Colonel Cheston Buckenmeyer, who was considered one of the greatest military doctors. He propelled the field of ultrasound and ultrasound-guided interventional techniques, and he spoke all over the world. And I had the privilege of working under him. In battlefield conditions, at Walter Reed Hospital, they would bring soldiers from the battlefield overnight,
Right.
flying on these big, big airplanes.
Right.
They would fly injured soldiers. They would bypass Landstuhl, Germany, fly them back into the United States, and we would treat those patients. They would, because the armor was so good
Yeah.
in the Iraqi war. But there was these IEDs, we call them. And these IEDs are like mines. You blow off people's arms and legs, the soldiers' arms and legs. So we came up with new techniques to target the nerves that go to the arm, go to the legs, because in the field of anesthesia, there's always general anesthesia, and that has the whole body.
Right. But the soldiers were hemodynamically unstable.
They were unstable. So this Colonel Cheston Buckenmeyer said, we're going to use ultrasound-guided procedures. And ultrasound-guided procedures was very poor at that time. You know, this is 2003, right? I started, you know, being at Walter Reed in 2003, 2004. And he said it's just going to get better. Just like look at X-ray. X-ray, you know, came in 1904, 1905. It was one of the first Nobel Prize.
Right.
And he said, look, now we have C-arm technology. We have 3D C-arm technology. We have CAT scans. He said this ultrasound, it might be an infantile technology, but the law of accelerating returns, this is going to be the future.
So you were involved in a very innovative area of medicine that was advancing medical boundaries, medical frontiers, right?
Correct.
And benefiting, you know, some of the most seriously injured people in a substantial life-saving way.
Correct.
And this was the work that, you know, you continued to do in Pennsylvania
Right.
up until 2019, correct?
Correct. In
And-
September 2019, you know, I was criminally indicted in the most horrible fashion. Supposedly, and this came out in court documents, there were 80 people involved. I had 3 hospital clinics. They invaded those 3 hospital clinics with, you know, goons, basically.
Let me just ask you, the 80 people, you know, what particular agencies constituted
Absolutely.
this?
So it was the Philadelphia Police, the State Police, the Pennsylvania Attorney General's Office, the FBI was involved, the Office of Inspector General was involved, the you know, the federal government in terms of the Attorney General's Office. The Federal Attorney General's Office was involved. So multiple agencies were involved in my criminal indictment at my home.
Dr.
There were about 20 agents.
sorry to interrupt, but you know, and this is a very, in my opinion, a very critical and relevant point in terms of giving the public a window in on what's been going on. You know, the public will watch, you know, TV shows, what's that, Cops, or whatever those TV shows are, where they see, you know, these supposed SWAT teams
Right.
going into, you know, a Mexican drug kingpin's home, right?
Right.
But would you say that this is the same, you know, modus operandi that they used against you, against Dr. Savani?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But this is what's interesting. My lawyers knew this was going on. They said, you know what, Dr. Anand's willing to surrender. But they didn't want that. They wanted the show. They wanted the show, you know, they even called, even though I had a sealed indictment, the government called news stations to come there and film the charade of, you know, banging down my door, having my 1-year-old baby crying in the middle of the night, and I'll never forget her crying, my daughter, my only daughter, crying. And they came into my house, ransacked the house, stole money from my house and my safe, and threw me in prison. I was in prison for 7 days before I made bail. Once I came out, my wife was gone, my baby was gone, my wife filed for divorce. I show up to my house, half emptied. Then I find out that my credit cards were stolen from my house. The credit cards were being used while I was in prison. and incarcerated. Then I find out that the government's whole basis of coming after me was this technology called data analytics. Well, I used to build computers when I was a young kid. Plus, I was decent in math and statistics. So I started looking into this. Let's see what this data analytics is all about. I started looking at it, and I studied philosophy. So my two majors in college was biology and philosophy. So I had a philosophical mindset.
Right, so you
I wanted
have
to
that
understand
critical
the deeper...
thinking facility.
Exactly. I wanted to understand the deeper underlying things of what's happening to all these physicians. Because when I was a young medical student, I never heard about physicians going to prison. In other countries, they don't have physicians going to prison. In India, France, China, they don't throw their doctors in prison. This is part of the incarceration of America, mass incarceration, that they like to do. We have more people in prison than China, which is a communist country, supposedly, Russia, which is a communist country, supposedly, right, and Mexico combined. I mean, these are huge populations. China has 3 times the population of the United States. Russia has half the population of the United States. What is going on in Mexico, which is full of drug cartels? China and Russia have less prisoners than us. We're a prison country. We've imprisoned our American Indians on reservations. We took Japanese people, because they were Japanese and looked different, put them in Japanese internment camps, took away all their property. So that's what this country is starting to become. Going after...
So for you,
Yeah.
you know, this, in many ways, what makes your story, you know, one of great irony is the fact that you represented an aspect of patriotism. You know, that you, after witnessing the events of 2001, you know, went and joined the military. And so the entity that you aligned yourself with, or aspects of it, turned on you.
Yeah, it was enlightening, but, you know, over time I've seen that this is the way, you know, hopefully the country can turn and become, you know, less corrupted, I believe, as time goes on, but, you know, that's to be said.
And so to come back to, you know, in any, I suppose, legal matter, you know, really what we try and distill things down to is the evidence and the facts, you know, the hard data, you know, and it seems to me that a lot of the indictments that have been filed against, you know, doctors, and a large percentage of them Indian doctors, are without evidential or factual basis. And your work in terms of the data analytics and the algorithms, kind of, you were able to work out that what they were doing was they were looking essentially at who's making the most money.
Absolutely, that's what they're doing.
And so in terms of, you know, if a member of the public is watching this, which they will be, you know, and they say to themselves, well, you know, the government has said this and the media said that and it must be right. You know, if one were to pull back the curtain, so to speak, would one see that the motivation for this lies, as Dr. Savani said, with the profit motive of the insurance industry?
Correct. From what I've seen from data analytics, and I've filed Freedom of Information Act requests, not only in the state of Pennsylvania where I live, but also at the federal government level. And these are some of the documents I brought here. But we have asked Health and Human Services, the Drug Enforcement Agency, we have asked them, how do you guys calculate who's a criminal physician, who's not? Who's a good physician, who's not? What's a good business, who's a bad business? What's malpractice, what's criminality?
So I'm going to this document relates to a case that you've been involved in, which is a Freedom of Information Access case, right? Could you just give us a very quick synopsis? What is a Freedom of Information request?
So, Freedom of Information Act was enacted by the United States Congress to be a check by the people against the government to make sure that there's no corruption going on in the United States government. Now, I filed this lawsuit with Dr. Pompey and many other doctors from the United States.
And who is Dr. Pompey, just quickly?
Dr. Leslie Pompey is a physician who was criminally indicted after having issues with Blue Cross Blue Shield. They decided to go after him. He's a black physician, also an immigrant from Haiti. He was charged with so many counts of healthcare fraud and drug distribution, because he's a pain doctor like myself, that he was looking at 660 years of prison time. He went to trial. I went to that trial. I watched that trial. The jury totally acquitted him of every single charge. And now...
and how many counts were there against Dr. Pompey?
More than 40 counts. I mean, these prosecutors are treating this like a game. They just make up counts, make up a narrative, then use the data analytics, these numbers, which themselves are fraudulent. We don't even know the equations. They don't measure good care or quality care. All they measure is money. All they measure is CPT codes and ICD-9 codes, and all they're looking at is, are you an outlier? But the problem with this...
So just very quickly, CPT coding and ICD coding for people around the world who don't know about these are just technicalities of the billing process for doctors.
They have nothing to do. They're just imaginary things saying, okay, well, we're going to take all the diseases, right? It's just invention of the human mind, right? We're going to take all the diseases, make a list of them. We're going to take all the procedures, make a list of them. We're going to see what diseases people have and how they're being billed.
Right.
And how much they're charging for each procedure.
So it's an arbitrary classification.
It is arbitrary classification because diseases keep changing. The field of medicine keeps changing. It's an art.
Right.
Medicine is an art. It's a science and an art. And their different practitioners have different ways of treating things. Dr. Savani treats things differently. Dr. Akula will treat things differently. People treat things differently. And some will succeed based on their bedside manner. Some will succeed based on their technology. Some will succeed based on their know-how. There are different ways you can succeed in the medical business. Just like Michael Jordan is the #1 basketball player.
But again, in all of this, it comes down to, we as physicians understand the complexities and nuances of medicine, and we practice with, many, many years of education and training. The issue that exists, I think, in America is that you've got for-profit corporations run by people who don't have our training and education, who are making decisions, medical decisions, but that are motivated by nothing but their agenda of profit and not patient care, correct?
Absolutely, Dr. Call. Where are they measuring technological ability? Where is that in the equation? Where are they measuring innovation? They don't measure innovation. They take out all the innovators because they're outliers because of their data analytics. That's why we don't have an Elon Musk of medicine. We don't have a Steve Jobs of medicine. They've emasculated medicine. They've destroyed medicine. Nobody wants to be a doctor anymore.
Socializing.
This is a total destruction, an implosion of medicine nationwide. Why? Because the government, our United States government, Health and Human Services, has sided with the insurance companies.
And just on that point of the Health and Human Services, I want to bring this back to your FOIA request, because I think the FOIA project in which you embarked with Dr. Pompey has yielded a substantial amount of information. And you referenced it before, the conspiracy that has been perpetrated by the insurance industry and governmental agencies. What exactly did they do? What have they been doing?
Okay, that's an excellent question. So what they did, what the insurance companies did, they formed a partnership with the United States government, a public-private partnership called the Healthcare Fraud Preventive Partnership. Now, the Healthcare Fraud Preventive Partnership has one criminal forensic tool, data analytics.
Let me just ask you the year that they formed this.
They formed
Approximately.
approximately, I believe, around 2009, but I have to go through the documents and check it. But you know, in the 2000s, it's a new form, and what they decided to do was to go after healthcare fraud. Now, what is healthcare fraud? Healthcare fraud is, just reading the legalities, deceiving a patient, deceiving someone, and trying to get a benefit from that deception. The problem is how you codifying it, how you deciding what is, because like I said, there's so many different modalities, there's so many different treatments.
Right, who defines and who decides?
Yeah, who defines and who decides what's criminality? You know, there should be a hard black line, so you know. That's what legality is. You want to prevent people from committing crimes. So you tell the doctor, this is what a crime is. You should be able to go to a lawyer and say, am I doing something? There shouldn't be no gray.
There should be certainty.
There should be certainty so you can prevent crime, number one. And two, you know where the line is. There's no line. When I do Freedom of Information Act requests, we're saying, where's the line? Give us the equations. How are you determining things? We want to prevent crime. Give us a Freedom of Information Act request. Tell us how we can prevent further crime. But now, you're seeing every week a doctor getting indicted. Every week I read in the newspaper, on the internet, some doctor somewhere, some dentist, some pharmacist, Walmart. I mean, it's just endless. The pharmaceutical industry, they're criminals. The doctors are criminals. It's one industry, the insurance industry, combined with the federal government, and they're going after and saying, these people are corrupt, these people are immoral. The pharmaceutical companies are making new innovative medicines. The doctors are trying new innovative procedures. What is the insurance company doing? How do they innovate? What actuarial calculations are they doing?
I mean, that's rhetorical, I'm sure. My understanding is that they are doing none of the things that physicians and healthcare entities do. Their business is just strictly about corporate profit. And but let me just, as I said, the healthcare fraud partnership. With your FOIA project, you began this. Was it in 2021?
Yes.
Yeah, and from my reading of some of the documents, Dr. Anand, it seems that you have hit a nerve with these agencies in that they have been giving some information and holding back other information, and you've taken the non-disclosures into the court in DC?
Yes, and I have multiple lawsuits going on actually right now, just for information, not even for money. I want to know what our government's doing. I want to know how they're targeting physicians. I want to know what kinds of physicians they're targeting, because I'm working with multiple organizations around the country, Doctors of Courage, Physicians Against Abuse, multiple organizations that are studying. Okay, we have a list of 1,500 doctors. We study those 1,500 doctors. The data is conclusive. That sample of 1,500 is showing that they're going after physicians of color, independent practitioners, physicians who are above a certain age. So if you're 50 and above, you got a target on your back. Why? Because you have money, and the government wants to take that money. That's all it's about. Now, if you're an older physician, like Dr. Savani and Dr. Akula, you're more experienced. As time goes on, and a physician's practicing, that's what we call it, practice, right? It's an art. You get better. You're able to work quicker. You're able to work faster. Because it's a mental activity. Yeah, there's physical activity in terms of how you do a procedure and whatnot. But medicine is tremendously a intellectual ability. It's an intellectual endeavor. So you get better as time goes on. But what are they doing? They're targeting the elderly, most experienced physicians. And it's destroying all mentorship in this country. It's destroying all innovation of medicine in this country. It's destroying the business ability and the business competition in this country. It disgusts me.
Wow. You mentioned Doctors of Courage, and I'm going to kind of tie this up in terms of how it was that we came together. But you mentioned Doctors of Courage, and this is an organisation that was set up by Dr. Linda Cheek, and she served as a point around which, or to which, many doctors who had been attacked came. And I think I understand this is how you came to meet Dr. Akula, or what? How was? Just explain to me what role Doctors of Courage played in bringing us together.
Well, Doctors of Courage was started by Dr. Linda Cheek, and she was herself attacked. And she experienced, in her criminal case, a lot of prosecutorial misconduct, corruption in her case, and she was a teacher, also a wife of a military family, so she had gone all around the country, and she was a teacher of children. And they went after this practitioner and threw her in prison, saying that she's a criminal. They criminalized her medical treatment. Why? Because she had an alternative way of thinking, an alternative way of treating patients. She believed in treatments like homeopathy and other styles of treatment that are, that other physicians might disagree with. And so she was targeted and taken out. So she said, I got to put a stop to all this.
So there's allopathic medicine and homeopathic.
Right. There's different types of medicine throughout the world. For example, the Chinese have, acupuncture. The Indians have Ayurvedic medicine. The Germans were very into homeopathic medicine. There are different cultures with different medicines that are thousands of years old that have contributed to the richness of medicine, the richness of our field, the richness of our science.
Now, Dr. Cheek, from my understanding, has been very active in trying to bring the public's attention to this issue of, the issues that we've been talking about, the persecution of doctors. But she also, I understand, went to the United Nations in terms of making an application for human rights violations. And on this point of human rights violations, I mean, I've spoken to quite a few people over the years who have said that what's been going on against doctors, particularly African American and Indian doctors, constitutes violations of their human rights under the United Nations Charter. I mean, is this something that all of you, what opinion? I'm curious to know what you think on this.
Go ahead and you continue. I'll join.
Around 2022, I filed and Dr. Cheek's organization filed complaints to the Human Rights Council. We was working with an attorney who was an attorney at the United Nations, Zena Crenshaw Logo, who is an attorney, a human rights attorney at the United Nations, who encouraged us to seek help under international law and the international community. Because after World War II, there were so many atrocities that were committed by the Nazis that the United Nations was formed after the League of Nations. After World War I, there was the League of Nations. In World War II, there's the United Nations. To have all the countries come together, set up some codified laws on basic standards of human decency and behavior. Because the Nazis were doing, experiments on Jews, gypsies. They were doing human experiments on people. So there was rights and laws that were codified and written at the United Nations international level. And we complained to that body about what's happening in the United States. Now, the United Nations, their position is they cannot believe it. They could not believe it because they're used to dealing with countries, third world countries, that are having problems, that are having strife, genocidal strife. Rwanda, Sudan, countries that are extremely poor, countries that have warlords in those countries and committing genocide. But there's a genocide going right here in the United States. Just like Dr. Savani was saying, the insurance company is saying, hey, amputate the finger. Don't save the finger. That's going to cost us too much. Hey, take out the whole tooth.
So this is a bureaucratically engineered genocide that has been sanitized in order that the American public doesn't actually know that there is this genocide where there's this mass incarceration of Indian and African American.
Indian, black and brown.
Yeah.
And I'm a strong believer. After I got indicted and I was I'm criminalized for my good work of 28 years, I started looking more, connecting with my professional community and successful business community in Indian. We have about over 3 million Indian diaspora. Everybody works very hard. This country is built on immigration, and we all come from different parts of the world and contribute here. And we come with that dream of to be successful and giving back to the community where we came from, the third world. And I look at those example, what Neil said, how Hitler wanted to eliminate certain wealthy community, hardworking community, that's the Jewish, okay? And what happened to Idi Amin? Indians under the Idi Amin rule in Uganda.
Yeah.
All Indian successful people were basically told within 90 days to leave all the property, all their hard working, and just leave the country. America cannot do that technically, but there are elements in American governments, I think they are very targeted, very racist. We see that, and that is needs to be thoroughly checked. How many people are getting indicted like this.
So
we don't get the data.
What you're saying is that, Hitler's scheme, Idi Amin's scheme, is exactly the scheme that's being perpetrated here, but just with a different cover.
Different cover, yeah. Absolutely. I now strongly believe that my 28 years of hard working has been criminalized, and this is going to happen more and more. Not just in a dentistry, not in medicine, but I think overall, if you are a successful, hardworking immigrants and you accumulate a little bit wealth, and now you have the wealth, you wanted to snatch everything. In my case, our three brothers' hard work, and all the building we built for the facilities, mostly for dental facilities, which we took a lot of loans on that, and now it's been snatched away. So our retirement, which we built in this community here, and our end goal for three brothers was that some point we will retire and we will get our rewards, and we wanted to give back to again community. My dream was to put a dental school in Hawaii.
So Dr. Savani, I mean, it's almost as if, I suppose you could say it's an execution in another form.
It is absolutely. This is a financial genocide for the successful people here. Basically, they would like to snatch away all your hard work and your retirement. And this is happening to me. It's happening to other doctors. Those who are bringing innovations, bringing technology, which I did, and we expanded a great care, irrespective of their insurances. We serve underserved people. We took 30 cents, 25 cents a dollar, and this is what the reward we are getting it here. Yes, it is our rights violation here.
What a tragedy.
Yeah.
That's such a tragedy.
What I want to do is, Doctor, But Dr. Akula, I want to, bring this element to a conclusion, and, we've talked a lot about the injustices and the violations, and, and just to close, you have also made this point over the years that you dedicated yourself to helping people in this country, and there's a great sense of betrayal in all of this that you experience, that I'm sure that I know that all of you experience. So are there one or two words you want to say to?
Well, actually, I was going to give a little brief example of the legacy of this lie of this black males in Tuskegee, how they were lied that they're going to be cured of their disease. There was a penicillin that was existence, and they were denied this treatment, which was life-saving. So literally they did medical racism, treat them as the human guinea pigs right here in this greatest nation on earth. 623 of them. Nobody got penalized. While right there in Europe, Nuremberg trials, the American president sends a judge over there to go sit on that bench and tell us the American justice. Guess what? Those Nazi doctors, they were hanged to death for a similar experiments that they did on the Jewish people. And this was 623 of them that went to their grave, denied, lied, that they were being treated, given little tonics and lotions and stuff like that. They were lied.
So really, in concluding this, what you're saying, right, is that this theme of deceit and hypocrisy, that were witnessed,
there's a racism
and racism, that it's continuing in some form, in some strain, in this,
This is the injustice perpetrated on the weak, the vulnerable, the black, and the brown. We got to take care of them. The greatness of America is you give protection to the weak and vulnerable.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to wrap it up over here. So we've covered a lot today, and the conversation that we've had, a large part of what we're trying to do is, first of all, to bring this to the public's attention. We want the public to know what's been going on in these schemes against doctors, where there's been these mass incarceration programs. But secondly, and I think you'll agree, most importantly, is we want to bring about change. We want to effectuate change in this system so that the injustices to which all of us have been subjected, to which many other hundreds, if not thousands, of doctors have been subjected and are being subjected, that they come to a conclusion. So, in all of this, we want transparency within the insurance industry. We want to know that the governmental agencies responsible for protecting our rights in this country under both the American Constitution and the Human Rights Charter actually do protect our rights. And that, I suppose ultimately that, doctors, stop being sent to jail for practicing medicine. So I'd like to thank you all. That's it, Harry.
Thank you, Dr. Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.